Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Thursday. It's December 8th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and this is going to wrap up our week. No chart lessons on Fridays, as most of you know, unless you're new. Um, no surprise that prices did pull back and test that midline EMA. Notice how we closed below that. We had a fairly strong move up, and once we hit that midline, we just found resistance there and ended up going sideways the rest of the day. Um, Not a very consistent range either, so it was not easy trading again. And notice that we closed below that. We couldn't get through there. So is that just a pullback to test the EMA before we go lower? I don't know, because it could just be a failed break out of the small trading range before we go higher. So right now I mean, if we'd have closed through the EMA, I'd tell you, hey, there's a better chance we're going higher. But because of that resistance and we couldn't push through there, we could turn down now. So usually when prices push through a support and resistance, they come back and test it before they go lower. And so that's what we were kind of looking for, to see if prices were going to come back and test this. They did. And instead of pushing on, and they did push through at some point, but instead of closing on the other side, they closed below. And so that kind of leaves us hanging there. Hey, are we going to go will we get some follow through buying tomorrow, or is the resistance too strong and we're going to go lower? We'll just have to wait and see. We got That's pretty much what we would expect to happen. And the key is, you don't know if it was going to come back on this bar or go down a couple of bars and then come back. We just know what prices are likely to do. And once they push through an EMA like that, and you see how we came through, and they generally pull back and test it before they go lower. And if it doesn't hold, then prices may turn back up again. But we did make a lower low here, and we did the last couple of times down, so that's showing, and these are two fairly bearish bars, so that's showing some weakness. So we just may be pulling back to test this before we go lower. We'll just have to see. We'll see what tomorrow brings. But not a lot of clues here that we could still go either way. I mean, that's what we've been doing. We've just been kind of working sideways here for a while now, a couple of weeks. So it wouldn't surprise me if we do that through the rest of December, to be honest. But anyway, let's flip over to the 2000 tick chart, and we'll look at the day and go through the trades. Not a lot of trades today, but we'll see that when we. And here it is, and you can see we started off in this two-tiered channel. We had a couple of legs up here, two measured legs up here early, and then of course we measured the entire leg and looked for a possible another leg up from there, and we never got anything close to that. So that's a little telling there that maybe we could be turning down now. And you see we did turn down and sell off pretty strongly there, but we recovered a lot of that. But we never really got a new high on this break. I believe this two-tiered blue channel, it's holding prices properly, so it looks valid to me. Maybe it's not. It doesn't matter. We really spent the majority of the day in this tight range here, and we broke out the top, broke out the bottom a couple of times, but it all failed, and we're back in it again. So, needless to say, there's not a lot of trades here. I mean, there's some big moves that you just really couldn't participate in because there were no setups, and you don't want to chase these. Sometimes they go and go and go like this, but the first time you try to chase it, it'll turn down and you'll get stopped out. You'll be in a world of hurt. So don't try to chase those. Make sure you use valid entries and so forth on them. But let's zoom in here. We'll go through the trades. 7 o'clock came right up as we're coming up through here. I don't see any entries. We're getting too far away from the EMA. We had a close outside this blue or this green channel trend line here, and we've had a few more swings up, then dropped off, went sideways, and just kind of trended right on back down. And of course, I drew my trend line off these first two swings, but nothing here until right just prior to the open, just a little after 8 o'clock. Notice how we dropped down. We went into this sideways stuff, and you get a nice bearish bar right up here at the top. It gives you plenty of room to get out back to the EMA, back to the support down here. And prices just keep going, and then they're doing sideways again. You get another setup here. The problem here is you got a good bit of support here, and even though it went through this time, it may not go through, and you just don't have any room there at all. And you got a little bit of stem there. Maybe you enter that trade, but I would probably wait and wait on something better. We do have a break there, so it only has to go and make a new low lower than this little double bottom here, and that's not very far. It's probably enough to get you out of this trade, but there's too big of opportunity. It bounces at that support, and so I just don't like that trade. We come back to the trend line here, but we've already got a new low in place, so it could bounce at any time. And we actually come down here and get a two-legged correction and then turn lower again. And so notice there's a move up, first entry, and that's a break of that little channel there. Second move up, second entry. If it breaks below that, you'll probably get a scalp out of it. It's a little convoluted. It's a second entry. It's a pretty good signal bar, but it does close above the EMA there. But it has to continue to trend lower to break below that bar. So if it breaks below that, like I said, you're probably going to at least get a scalp. You end up getting a bigger move than not out of it, but I'm not crazy about that trade. The key is that it's possibility that we get another measured move down like this because there's two legs of correction. So then you may not get another chance to enter the trade. So that's why maybe you want to take a chance and enter here, because if we end up getting another measured leg, I mean, you're looking at a pretty good move down to right in here. And at that point, that's very possible. So you may want to take that trade. There's pros and cons. It's not a red one for sure. I'll mark it green. And then, of course, we bounce and we're working higher. And again, you don't get any setup, no reversals, no second entries, no nothing here. It just turns up and there it goes. There's not even any real setup bars here that you could take. So comes back, you get a second entry here. But again, you zoom in here, you see that signal bar. It's just not a signal bar you can enter. It's a little bit congested there too. So there's a lot of that with just not a lot of opportunity to enter. Now we do get a break in a new high, and it looks like we've got another channel setting up here. There is a hidden second entry, but again, you're real close to the EMA there, and you could come back and touch that and bounce. Although you're expecting a possible new low here, which puts prices far enough down here where you could get out. So it's another possibility that you could argue for it to be green. But anyway, drops on down. We do get a break of that channel here. I believe it was just this channel with a break and new low, and then we went up into this range. So I don't think this was actually valid. You put it on there just in case, but I don't think it's valid. And then we're just chopping sideways. So there's a higher low here after this low, but you couldn't be sure, again, that there wasn't a channel right here as I just showed you. And notice that little gap right there. It ends up backing up. So but a lot of times you'll see those gaps where there's trend lines or support and resistance, and you see that there. So maybe it is there, and it just your third touch is where you get your break. Doesn't help you trade it though. So I don't think I would go long there because of that possibility that there's a trend line coming through there. So here's another one that was really tempting. It breaks higher and turns down. If you trade this, you probably you can't go short way down here. So it's tempting to take that on the engulfing bar because it probably does trap some traders. Okay, I had a slight interruption. I think we were talking about this trade. You might take that trade to second entry short. You've already had your break of this green channel and a new high. Several swings up. The key is just making sure you got room back to that EMA because it could bounce there. You see it tried to bounce there, but it dropped on lower. And then you get down here and you get a triple test. right at the lows of this range. Looks like a range setting up, and it's also a second entry long. Um, it's not a perfect setup, but it's a long ways back to the EMA. Generally, you're better off to wait on a higher low. And you do actually get a higher low here, but it doesn't break lower. It just kind of makes a 2-bar matching low, and then it doesn't go as high as this bar. It closes fairly bullish, but it looks a little congested now, and that's not rejection. So I don't think if you didn't take this one, I don't think you want to take this trade. It would have worked. Both of them work, but there's better trades than that. And then we're just chopping sideways here. We can't even get back to the highs. Um, no more bounces at the low. It just takes off. There's a little breakout pullback short here, but I'd want to see it test that again and turn down first. I think it's too early. It turns out to be a great move, but you just can't risk that. So I just don't think it's worth risking when you come back out here. We bounced right here at this area a couple more times across here, so it makes it that much more risky. We do know the main trend line is down here, so prices are probably headed there, but again, I'd want that to test that one more time. But it does drop on down. You get a little close outside. It looks like it's going to take off. You do get a second entry short here, but I would not take that short right at that trend line. Again, it works, but I wouldn't take that short there. I think it's too risky. Prices are not even really back to this possible trend line or the EMA either. It turns out to be a nice move. I don't know if you could get in it anyway because it opens on it closes on its low, opens on its high, and just takes off real quick. So I think you'd have to use a limit order to probably get in that trade anyway. But it drops on down here, bounces, no rejection down here, so you can't go long. The green channel's working up. You get a break and a couple of swings up, and again, there's just not much here to go long. And I don't see any reason to go short yet until we finally get this. You get a triple test here, but I don't think you can risk going short with that much stem right at the EMA. If it broke lower there, it's probably going to go lower, but look how that bar ends up. But when you get the lower high and the second entry, then I like that one. And the better trade is to wait on the reversal, which is right here. So when it breaks lower there, basically you got a failed second entry long. And that turns out to be a pretty nice trade. And you're just kind of chopping around here. The market just really has no direction here. It's hard to know what prices are doing. So we get a little close outside this yellow channel, 2 legs to a new low, and then you're going the other way. And again, no long setup, no reversal. There's a second entry long here after the break, but no signal bar. And we run up here, we get a failed breakout. Nothing to go short up here on. You can't go short here right into that support resistance because it's trying to act as support. So again, there's just not many setups here. You do get this failed break lower, but with this being so bearish, there's no way you can go long yet. You need to wait. This one is somewhat tempting. I don't think I would take the engulfing bar into a triple top across there. And by the time it closes, it's gone so far, it's all the way to the other side of the channel, so I don't think you want to go long there. It still would have worked. You'd had to ride out a little bit of a pullback. And you might look at this as a failure. Notice there's a double bottom here and a first entry, second entry. So you might trade that on a failure because we're at the low of the range and we could be going higher. I'll at least make that one green. But again, it's not the best setup in the world. So it's not really a reversal, but it is a failure. And it's, I'd rather see a reversal type pattern. Reversal would come off a failure down here, like right here, but that's on the wrong side of the EMA. We already talked about why we don't like that one. And again, you don't want to be going short here, but finally we come back here and you get a triple test. It's like the range lows kind of dropped a little lower. And now you get a triple test with a great signal bar, enough room back to the EMA. I like that one. And then it doesn't take off. It ends up, you don't get stopped out. It ends up going higher, but that would be the one you would expect to finally go higher, and it still struggles and has to uh, get a little short trap going there to finally break out of there. And you would expect prices to retest this high like they do. You basically get two legs up here and then it turns back down. But this is basically a double bottom here, and you get a first entry, second entry, and so if it breaks above there, there's another failure. And you can see that acted like another trap, and you got another little push out of it, but it's still, prices still couldn't muster anything to the upside. And they come back, two legs back again, and unfortunately you don't get another signal bar here, but you get another failure. And it almost looks like a repeat of this. So this time I'd probably take that trade. I marked it blue. I marked it green on this one, but now that you've got a repeat and it looks a little better, maybe you take that one. So I think it's worthy of being blue. And then nothing else here, and takes us into 230. So not the greatest trading day. There's a few trades in there, but just not a lot going on here. So we continue to just kind of work sideways more than anything. I just think that we still have some residual effects from the range on the daily chart. And nobody seems to want to buy it at those highs, but it hasn't sold off strongly yet. We had a couple of days sell off strongly, and then we're just kind of well, let's go back and look at the daily chart one more time before we wrap it. Okay, you can see it here. We've been in this range, and we were chopping along in here, and then finally had some movement. Again, this is most likely, it could be a failed breakout that gets back in the range and keeps going. Let's just extend this over in case. Here we'll probably pull back and test the support. If it holds, we may go higher. But so far we came down through the EMA, which you would expect prices to pull back and test that before it goes. Even if it's going lower, you would expect this to happen. So it's just not real clear yet what prices are doing. There's a lot of choppy sideways, and it's been that way since way back here on, what's the date here? November 11th. So we're going on 3 weeks of this stuff here. There's not much going on there. And a lot of this could be the year, going into the end of the year, people starting vacations. A lot of the big funds and commercial type traders and things are probably squaring up their year-end accounts, moving things around, and so maybe they're not concentrated on one market at this time. They're just more concentrated on squaring up accounts and waiting for the end of the year to get here. So we'll just have to see what happens. I don't know what tomorrow will bring. We could see prices turn back down now, make another leg down. But it wouldn't surprise me if we find support back inside this little range, and this turns out to be a failed breakout, and we get back in the range again. So it could work either way. I mean, that's kind of what happened here. We broke out and failed, but of course we turned down right off that main trend line. And so we could be heading into another sell-off. It's just a little bit early, a little bit difficult to tell at this point. There's just not a lot of clues here. But notice how strong this was trending up, and now it's turned flat, and it could roll over and turn down again. Neither one would surprise me, actually. So we'll see what tomorrow brings. I'm going to wrap it up for today. Hope you had a good trading day. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.